Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the East Anglia Hobbit Community Podcast. Here with me, Jack, and I'm here again today with Josh.
Hello everyone, how you all doing?
Yeah, so today we're just going to quickly run through the event that we did on Saturday. It was the East Anglia Middle-earth League event. It's just one of our general events that is a league counting games towards our end of year tournament.
Yeah.
We'll just jump straight into it, I guess. So, First of all, everyone who did come, thank you very much. Went really well. No rules queries. I think I had maybe 2, and it was just a clarification. It's made very easy for me, and I'd like to think everyone had a good time, and it went fairly well.
Everyone, despite the weather, which we can't control.
Yes, we were all melting a little bit.
Everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves, so...
Yeah, no, it's good. And so it was a 700-point event. It was good v evil, so 11 on each team, and you'd only ever be matched. Obviously, good versus evil.
Yeah.
And it was 3 games from the remaining 4 scenarios that we haven't played in a league event yet this year, which was Whole Ground, Recon, Fog of War, Clash by Moonlight. So we played 3 of those, and the 3 we played were Fog of War, Recon, and Clash by Moonlight. So no Whole Ground. And whether we'll play that in the next event, I'll have to sort out what we'll be doing.
Annoyingly, because it's my favourite.
Yeah, and there was a fair few Gurits anticipating the Maelstrom deployment, as well as obviously helps with Recon as well. But
he's still not awful, even if you don't get it.
Nah,
he's just a captain with an extra might point.
So yes, what might be easiest, we just run through each of our games, and then we'll run through who finished where and everything else. I think that'll probably be easiest.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, because I haven't really spoke to you about your games anyway. I know roughly, obviously I've seen the scores, but aside from that...
Yeah, I was trying a few things. So from a results point of view, maybe not the best, but from a learning about things in my army, there was definitely a lot learnt. So positives and not so much negatives, because all my games are really good. They just didn't go my way. So yeah.
My first game I played James Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Played him a few times. I have no idea who's won more out of the 2 of us. I obviously had my Rivendell and White Council army. We run through them before, but we'll quickly run through them. It's basically Glorfindel with armor, horse, and Gildor with a mixture of spear and shield, sword and shield, bow and spear, and 1 Rivendell knight with Radagast on sleigh, just because I wanted to give it a go.
How did you find it, Radagast sleigh?
Good. I haven't really used the wizard much in the new edition, so it's nice to have a bit of magic back again.
Yeah.
But my thinking behind wanting to use the sleigh, one, because I said before I brought the model, didn't quite finish mine. You lent me yours, and it's a cool model. And also, I think with the sleigh, you get the magic, but also something different. You can still go into combat and have a good chance of killing a few things and not just dying the first or second turn. You get into combat with something as a wizard.
He's definitely a troop killer on the sleigh.
Yeah, it was. I quite enjoyed the different approach with a wizard, if you like.
Yeah.
Almost fell beast-ish in a sense, but not to that extreme. But yeah, I enjoyed it. And so James had a Angmar army, and he had some stuff that I hadn't played against before. Well, one in particular was Gulliver,
Bird, beast,
Barrow White, and then it was a few wargs, and then 2 cave trolls, and a load of Angmar orcs, and it was. I was really looking forward to playing the list. Actually, It was, like we say, Clash by Moonlight was the first one. So obviously 3 heroes. Birdo was the leader, so that wasn't my target. Thought Gulliver would be hard to kill, so I thought even though I assumed that would be his to keep alive, I didn't really fancy my chances taking that down. So my target was the Barrow White, also because I wanted to kill it quite early, because like I said, I was trying to get a lot out of Radagast on Slay in this event, and if he paralyzes him, he's straight off the Slay, even though he can resist and everything else. But I was going to target him anyway, because I didn't want it to ruin my fun. So,
Makes sense.
so yeah, that was the one to kill. And the board was, we had a river in the middle, a bridge straight across the middle of the river, and just different houses dotted around on either side of our boards. So my terrain piece to capture was a house on his side of the board.
Yep.
And my keep alive was Radagast, because he's a bit more survivable than Gildor, even though I was going to be trying to do quite a bit with Radagast. And then
I always find if you play that scenario and you chuck in the thing you're trying to keep alive, it sometimes throws people off a little bit. I mean, it's risky, obviously, because if he then dies, you're like, oh, well, I've given away VPs. But
yeah, and I assumed he'd be trying to kill Gildor as well, so I thought I won't try and keep him alive, because I imagine that's the target anyway.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So, and I think his targets were kill Gildor, keep alive Gulliver, and a house on my side of the board. So fairly standard objectives. So yeah, it started off, we all deployed up. We both moved up towards the bridge. He sent his warg riders around one side of the map to my right hand side. Whether that was a decoy to think he wanted that house to, or to just drag me out there or whatever, I'm not sure. So I sent over there my Rivendell Knight and Glorfindel initially, just because I thought they could deal with it, and then swing around the back onto his troops coming up the bridge.
Yep.
And he decided to send 2 cave trolls straight up the middle of the bridge.
Ouch.
2 of them just fit side by side.
Oh, because they're on the 40mm base rather than...
Yeah. And I can't remember if I'd moved Glorfindel or not before they went up there, but I thought, no, as much as he's good against monsters, I just thought, no, I'll take him round the back. So anyway, where they were both next to each other on the bridge and his heroes were behind, and Gulliver was flying around at the back and on the other side of the bridge, I just thought I will position Radagast and try and Nature's Wrath the trolls. Then do some two-handed nastiness with elven blades on the bridge, backed up with spears and a banner.
Yep.
Try and take them down. The Nature's Wrath worked, but I think one of them lost the combat, and one of the elves lost the combat, and on the other one I think I did 1 wound. So it wasn't as devastating, but it was a nice little something different to do with that. And then obviously any other models crossing the river were thinking twice, because Nature's Wrath in the river, they're gonna drown.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So Nature's Wrath in the river I hadn't really thought about too much before we started, but as we started crossing the bridge I thought, this is a nice little extra kind of, just something extra for him to worry about. So anyway, as it went on, Glorfindel and the Rivendell Knight went round the side, killed the wargs. I think there was 3 or 4.
Nice.
And then started heading round the back towards the Barrow Wight. And Berda come along and started to move towards Glorfindel. And in the end, Glorfindel and Berda met, which isn't too bad for Glorfindel, because not worrying about rending with his armour.
True.
And at this point, my elves were kind of holding the river/bridge. I think I may have killed one of the trolls, maybe. Can't really remember too well.
Right.
So I brought Radagast round the side that Glorfindel was coming with to try and immobilise Berda, just to prevent him from striking, so I could save my might for potentially winning the duel and causing some wounds. And I think I may have one-turned Berda, potentially, because I immobilised him. He couldn't strike up.
Nice.
And his only defense 6, so it was 5s to wound. And it was, I think I used maybe I went 2-handed. I can't really remember, but it was 1 turn, maybe 2. I'm sure James will correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But while that was going on, Gulliver had flew over to the back of my lines and was just causing a bit of trouble, killing troops. Never played against Gulliver before, and I wasn't sure how to deal with him, because he causes terror, and obviously the orcs do within 3 inches of the hero. So I was failing a fair few courage tests, even with elves, because he's the harbinger of evil as well.
Yeah, he's pretty nasty. For his points, he's expensive, but he is pretty nasty.
Yeah, I think I tried a few immobilizers with Gildor, but with his resistance to magic and his will, I think they were all resisted.
Right.
Maybe I got one off where I stopped him from moving and just left him alone for a turn. But I was kind of caught between two minds of whether to avoid him or trap him with a load of models and try and kill him in one turn.
It's very doable. He's quite low defense.
Yeah, so in the end, I think I just threw one, maybe two into him a turn, and one of the turns I trapped him with 3 models, and James was really bad rolling. I think he had a 2 or 3 highest.
Ouch.
And I won the combat, and I managed to put, I think it was 3 wounds, and he dropped straight down to 1 attack.
Yeah.
So after that, it wasn't as scary. So maybe if I did that earlier on, he may have stopped him causing so much trouble.
Yeah, I think from speaking to a couple of people who've used Gullivar before, if you can get him in there and really wreck face and utilize your heroic combats, he really can do a lot on his own.
Yeah.
But then as soon as he's out of might and he's taken a couple of wounds, he does kind of struggle again. So
yeah, I think he might have still had might at this point. I think the roll was just so low that he couldn't even might up to win. And after that, he was down to 1 attack, and I think I just kind of held him up. And then when James broke, the following turn, Gullivar ran away.
Right.
Did he run away? Well, anyway, whatever happened anyway.
Yeah.
So at the end of the game, I managed to achieve my objectives. I think Radagast was the one who actually ended up on the house I wanted, because as I brought him round that flank, I just pivoted his base so he was touching the house and was dropping him backwards and forwards to do any spells. The
big base came in handy then.
Yeah, it did, especially with the Nature's Wrath early on, because it allowed me to position him so I could get both of the trolls without any of the heroes resisting.
Nice.
So even if it didn't kill them, it managed to hold them up for a couple of turns. I think Glorfindel then come around the back and got onto the trolls as well. Basically that's how that went. It was relatively close actually until the last few turns. It was mainly when Gullivar took the wounds, and then I didn't really have to worry too much about fighting on the two fronts, if you like.
Yeah.
So after that, then there was just a complete swing in the game in 2 turns maybe, and it ended up as being a 12-0 win for me.
Oh, very nice.
But yeah, it was close up until the last few turns, and played James a few times, and he's was a very nice opponent to play.
Yeah,
and his army was I've never played against an Omar army with Gullivar, and I think I may have played him once or twice before then, full stop. But yeah, I really enjoyed the game and got a bit of use out of Radagast on slow, which was what I was mainly hoping to do for the whole event. So yeah, It was a good game, and then winning 12-0, and with the scenarios that were left with my 23 model army, I wasn't fancying my chances in this second game too much, but we'll get onto that after your first game.
Yeah, so I played James Richardson, good friend of mine, and of the club. He's done some nice terrain for us recently and stuff, so that was cool. Very nice of him. Thank you again, James. And he had his Rohan, so he had whatever the new Eowyn Merry combination is. It Dernhelm? Dernhelm. Yeah, he had Dernhelm, Éomer, and Theoden, and then he had 4 Royal Guard, and then just a load of Riders of Rohan.
With his beautifully painted armies, as always.
Oh, they are gorgeous. And then I'll go over it again. I had Malfassaron on a horse, armored horse, Shagrat with some Blackguard and some Morannons, Shadowlord with some Black Numenorians and Morannons, and then Guritz with some Black Numenorians and some Morannons. And our board was the stuff James brought with him, the terrain, so it was like a Rohan village. And I picked there was a farm that was on both halves of the board, as it were. So obviously I picked the half of the farm that was in his board half. And I picked to kill Merry because I thought it'd be quite easy to kill. And I chose to keep alive the Malfassaron, which I think lost me the game, actually. I should have chose Shagrat because there was no way he was going to pick to try and kill Defense 7, 3 Fate, 3 Wound Shagrat, but such is. And it started off, I deployed in a big blob to utilise the Shadowlord because obviously James's whole army is shooting. And I think throughout the game it may have cost me 4 or 5 will, but I think I lost 2 models to shooting. So that little experiment using the Shadow Lord, even though you have to pay will now to have his pool of darkness throughout the day, definitely benefited my army.
Yeah.
So
because you've got nothing to counter shooting otherwise.
I just don't take shooting in my Mordor lists. I am looking at maybe adding some trackers on wargs, maybe like 4 or 5, because they're not too expensive. And they still hit on a 4, and then, you know, when they get into combat, at least they're not completely awful.
Yeah.
So that was my shooting it just stopped a lot of things dying for shooting, because that's normally what happens when I play Mordor. I just get shot off the board. Yeah. So definitely worth the will in the first game. And we kind of jostled around the middle. I had a little warband blocking a choke point, and then the rest of my army was kind of all together, but the Shadow Lord was in the middle, so I could pop out, cast a spell, pop back if I wanted to. But he was there just for his Harbinger of Evil rule to cover my Black Numenorians, and obviously his Pool of Darkness just to protect the warband that wasn't fighting from shooting if I chose to do that. It came down to it, and the first turn, James charged in with his. He charged one dude into the Shadow Lord because it's a Royal Guard, so he doesn't have to pass Courage. And then he charged his other Royal Guards into Black Numenorians, again, because he doesn't have to pass Courage, because they all cause terror. And I was able to position some heroes. I got Guritz in to the Shadow Lord's combat. I got Shagrat into a Royal Guard. I got the Mouth of Sauron into a Royal Guard. And they all called a combat the first turn. And I killed all 4 Royal Guard in the first turn, which was something that I really wanted to do, because obviously the big trick for what I was trying out was the terrifying on my troops, and then the Harbinger of Evil to make it harder for my opponent, because it was good versus evil, and if there was any man armies, potentially their Courage 3 down to 2, or Courage 4 if they're Gondor down to 3, and so on and so forth. So that definitely did work. And we were jostling for position, and it's hard to remember 3 games when you're not. I should take notes. And it came down to,
but never did.
It came down to James had managed to get Theoden and Éomer into Guritz, and I was like, right, that must be who he's going for. So I managed to charge Shagrat into one guy, and then call a second heroic combat to take Theoden off of Guritz.
Just to keep him alive.
Because I thought that's who he was going for, just to keep him alive. And then I managed to get another guy into the Éomer combat as well, so that it was even dice-wise. And I got very lucky that Guritz somehow lived. I think he lived on 1 wound with no fate. And I thought, okay, well, if he goes for him next turn, that's definitely who he's going for. If he doesn't, then I'll run him away. James played me very well, actually. He proper played the because I was my Black Guard and Black Numenorian, because the Fight 4 really helped me when I charged his models, because they're all Fight 4, which is not so common in a Mordor list. I was just I think I killed maybe 15 models and I'd only lost 2, and James managed to kill Guritz and the Mouth of Sauron pretty much within 2 turns of each other.
Right.
And I was like, oh crap, I've just lost the game because I didn't pick Shagrat, because Shagrat was fine, essentially. And in the last, I cast a few spells at Derwine. She was out of will. Merry had 1. They had no might between them. So in the last turn, I moved the Shadow Lord back. I had 5 will left, and I used 4 of it to Black Dart Merry.
Just to try and get the VPs.
Me and James weren't sure if I could specifically target Merry, but he is a passenger, so
I would imagine so, yeah.
But between us, we agreed that because he's a passenger and he has his own stat line whilst even being on the horse. And
if you both agree, then
if we're wrong and someone more knowledgeable than us, please let us know. But I got the black dart off. I did the wound. He used his resistant to magic, but he didn't get a high enough roll. He failed his fate roll, so I managed to nick back the VPs for killing the target I was going for.
Nice.
And in the last turn, I managed to move on to my bit of terrain I was going for. James was always going to get his because he had 10 riders just running around the board doing nothing, basically.
Darting away to whatever they wanted, kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. So I was like, well, I'm never going to deny him that one. And in the last turn, I managed to break James, and I wasn't broken. And I thought, right, well, I've either nicked it by 1 point or we've at least drew, because although I failed to keep my guy alive, I'd broken James, I'd killed his guy, and I had my terrain piece. And James had killed his target, kept his target alive, and had his terrain piece. And I was like, all right, well, must be a draw. And James went, no, AMA's base is just on the same forest as your model, which means obviously then it's tied, so you get 1 point rather than, is it 3 or 2, or whatever the difference is. So I thought I'd snuck in there and nicked it in the last turn, and James kind of reminded me that AMA was covering the same bit of field, and I was like, oh, well, fair enough. So it was a really good game. I learned from, if you have a Defense 7 model with 3 wounds and 3 fate, you should probably pick him as your model to keep alive.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard
but
to
me
kill.
and James just had a really good game. It was so fun, and we were just playing it like it was just it was a league event, but
it's still fairly casual.
We were just playing it like it was a proper casual. We were just having a laugh and a joke, and it was really good fun. And as I say, I learned a lot about my models in that list in that first game, especially from shooting, because Jet potentially, he had 20 odd bows and throwing spears, and I probably would have just got shot off the board if I didn't have the Shadow Lord. So that was my game 1. I think it was a 8-6 loss, but it was a really fun game. So
that's good.
Yeah.
So it come down to literally one model being somewhere at the end of it.
Literally, it was either a draw or I would have nicked it if AMA hadn't been
on
hovering on a bit of terrain piece. Yeah, but again, that's the scenario, and I could have done more to try and get his models, but it's fine, man. It was such a good game that I'm not really bothered. So
that's good. So so second game. So my second game, having won the last one, I was up against CJ, who had a very big win in the first game. I think it was 12-1 or something like that. And the scenario was recon. And looked at, even though I'd checked the list, I couldn't remember who had what. Looked at CJ's list, and it was a 48 model army, or 46, something like that. It was double the numbers I had. I had 23. Straight away I was like, this is going to be tough. But look, we had a ball. What ball did we have? It was fairly generic. A little bit of forests. I think there might have been some rocky bits, terrain patches as well. So a mixture of woodland and general difficult terrain. Couple of trees and rocks to potentially hide behind and things like that. Yeah. So we looked at the board. We rolled for board edge. I usually do not care about board edge at all, but I even said to CJ, I'm going to be that guy and swap board edges just because. And it was, I think the board edge I chose had a slightly smaller choke point, and I'm talking maybe a model's width.
Right.
But I thought he's got 40 odd models. I need every little bit of space I can get to try and do something.
That's fair.
So so we sat down and rolling to come on first turn. I think all of CJ's come on. Right. Gurit's come on first, and I don't think he even needed the boost for the ones afterwards.
Just reminded me about my recon rolls. Go on, sorry.
So first of all, CJ's army was, let's say, 40 odd models. It was a Harad and Mordor alliance. Gurit's with some Morannons, I think. Sylvadan horse or armored horse with a load of Abrakan Guard. I think some Watchers of Kana as well.
Yeah.
And then the Betrayer with loads of Harad with poisoned weapons and bows. And
so a gun line with Gurit's and some Morannons.
Yeah, and a few Abrakan Guard and Watchers of Kana thrown in for a bit of more punch, I imagine.
Nice. I love the models for the Abrakan Guard. I think they're really good.
Yeah, it looked really good on the table, his army as well. So he set up. He had Suladan on my left with a few of his guard, Guritz with his Morannons on the left. And then after the first turn, he kind of moved some of the Abrakan Guard and Watchers of Kana over to the right as well. And he had his main Harad Bowman just in a big block in the middle. So my deployment, I think I got Radagast on, and I think both of my warbands didn't come on first turn, which wasn't a good start. But, just how it happens. So second turn, and they both come on. And I deployed in the middle to start with the view to potentially move a few to either side to block off any models running around the edge, trying to escape off down the flanks, which was going to be tough with how many models he had. So first couple of turns went on. I think he moved up, and then he will have been in range to shoot the very next turn after my models had come on. I was a bit worried about his shooting because I only had 7 shots even for elves, so I wasn't going to win that. He had the Betrayer's Rule, so rerolling all failed to wounds. And with my Glorfindel on a horse and Radagast Slays quite low defense and everything, I kind of backed off. And at this point, I didn't have a real plan. I thought, let me see where he goes. I'll try and cut off the flanks because I had Glorfindel on horse and Raddy on Slay, so they could get round quickly to potentially cut off the flanks if I needed to. He had a few Warg Riders, but they were round to the left flank. So I sent Glorfindel to the left, Radagast to the right. During these turns, I was trying Aura of Dismay, and it just would not go off with a 3-1. So Radagast had done nothing at this point.
What's it cast on? A 3?
No, Aura of Dismay is the bubble one, and that's a 5. And then everything within 6 is terrifying. So I've slowly crept up, stayed out of range, but then eventually it got to the point where I just had to go forward because otherwise he's going to creep up, and then be on top of me and just get everyone off the board. So there was a lot of measuring and everything, but started to creep up, and his shooting, once he was in range, wasn't the best. He was rolling to wound and re-rolling to wound, and it just wasn't happening for him. So I don't know whether it was really bad luck on his part, or because they're only strength 2 bows, maybe it's not as scary as you first think.
I mean, most of your stuff is defense 6 or 5, so it's 6 to wound.
Exactly. So maybe I didn't need to be as worried as I was about his gun line, but I think it was more bad rolling than anything else. So as we moved up, he sent a few Abrakan Guard and Watchers of Kana around to the right. He'd spaced his Watchers of Kana out throughout his battle line for a Nature's Wrath, because they've got resistance to magic built in.
Oh, do they? I didn't know that.
Or some kind of rule or something, whatever. I think maybe it's just resistance to magic on their stat line. But anyway, so he'd spaced that out, so I couldn't just Nature's Wrath and hold him up and run round. Eventually, he sent a few models round to the right flank. Radagast kind of sorted them out a little bit with a Nature's Wrath, and I think I had to heroic combat into one in the end to stop one getting off the board. My other Rivendell Knight come round to stop one who had gone down a tiny gap for a terrain piece that Radagast couldn't get to, so I kind of blocked him up over there. During this, Glorfindel went round wound to shooting. I think it might have been Suladan with his bow. Anyway, so he took a wound to shooting, and it just was a very back and forth kind of game, and I'd managed to put myself in a position in the last turn where Radagast had got in Nature's Wrath to Suladan. Suladan was prone. Radagast had charged in. I put in an Elf Spearman to get my Elven Blade bonus for a strike, or if he was immobilized, I think, but they had the same fight value, whatever it was. But then, by not measuring properly, CJ had managed to charge the Elf Spearman with one model, and then charge Radagast with the Betrayer as a sacrificial lamb, which meant Radagast was no longer on Suladan. So, in the end, it come to the last turn. If we played one more turn, CJ would have got about 3 or 4 models off the board.
Right.
But on that last turn, if a few things went my way, I actually had a chance of killing his leader and winning like 3-1.
Right.
Which I was pleased to be in that situation after that, not having a chance really
Well,
against
yeah,
that.
considering
Not necessarily not having a chance, but it being very difficult. And CJ's a good player on top of that. So, I didn't get the wound on Siladan. A few things would have had to go my way for that to happen and him not to get another model off the board.
right.
And it ended up being a 1-0 win from the shooting VP wound on Glorfindel.
Oh no.
But it was a really good game. Like for a loss, it was a very enjoyable loss. It was
Sometimes when you have a really close game like that, literally can go either way. It's a little bit like, oh, I could have won, but you don't mind losing because you had a good game anyway.
Yeah, it was a very intense but tough but enjoyable game.
Yeah.
For a different than other games where loads of stuff is happening. There was a lot of kind of very just small little bits happening here and there, and very backwards and forwards and tactical. And yeah, it was a really good game. Really enjoyed it.
Decent.
And like I say, to be in a position where I had a small chance of winning, I was quite pleased with. But in the end, I lost 1-0. And one more turn, I would have lost by about 6 or 7.
Right.
But, it was a really good game.
Oh, fair enough.
But yes, that one went on a little bit. So your second game.
So I played Dan Ray, and we'd been discussing our lists between us for the previous week, like we normally do. I like to bait Dan into thinking I'm taking something and then switch it up. But I was actually pretty honest with him this time, and I told him my list, and he was brought. So the reason I brought some of the choices I brought was because I thought there would be a lot of the Return of the King Legendary Legion. Yeah. And I think 3 people ended up using it. So I thought if I take normal orcs, I'd probably lose very, very quickly, which is why I had the Black Numenorians and some of the higher courage Mordor stuff, just to try and not die on 3s, essentially. Yeah. And obviously, the board we were playing on had some spot terrain, specifically, I can't remember, and then we had a river, which meant the Army of the Dead can move through water terrain without any negatives.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, well, let's get my models on the board, because I did have about 14 or so more models. Dan had 2 Rise of the Dead, Aragorn, King of the Dead, Legolas, and then some warriors. Can't remember the exact amount, but I think he had 23 or 4 models, so 3 heroes, 2 mounted, so maybe 16 or 17 normal guys on foot, or warriors of the dead on foot. So I rolled Guritz. I was like, I get a +1, so I need a 3. I rolled a 1, so I had a 2. I didn't really want to use 2 might in the first turn, so he didn't come on. I then rolled for the Mouth of Sauron, and he got a 3, which means had Guritz been on the board, he would have got on, but obviously he wasn't, so he didn't. I then rolled for Shagrat, who also rolled a 3. So again, had Guritz been on the board, he would have got on, but he didn't.
So the main reason Guritz was in the army and they let you down.
Yep. So then I rolled for the Shadow Lord, and I rolled a 3, and I had enough might where I could spend 1. I wanted to get some models on the board so Dan couldn't just go anywhere, essentially.
Yeah, just to get him moving.
Yeah, so I deployed the Shadow Lord. He had a full warband. Well, not quite full, but he had the most warriors in his warband. So I kind of made a line along the middle just to try and act as somewhat of a deterrent while the rest of my army was chilling in reserve. So we moved forward. I didn't have to do Pool of Darkness very much because the only shooting was Leggy, and his rule negates Pool of Darkness anyway, so I didn't bother. But obviously Aragorn has Heroic Resolve, so magic wasn't really very good for me. And it came down to a bit of a fight in the middle, essentially, as it probably always was going to. Now, luckily for me, I did have the Harbinger of Evil and Terrifying Cause. So we did the same trick to each other, basically. My Black Numenorians were able to charge because they were Courage 4 rather than Courage 3 because of the Mordor bonus. I
Yeah.
got a +1 courage value because I had more models.
Yep.
And then some of his ghosts failed, some of my stuff failed, and we kind of just got into combat. He'd sent he sent the 2 riders off, so I compelled one forward and charged it with the mouth of Sauron. I compelled one back towards me rather, and then I was able to charge it with the mouth and hold that one up. And then I sent Shagrat over there as well, which kind of also cost me the game a little bit because I had 5 might on one edge of the board. But anyway, it essentially came down to the last turn. I killed the 2 riders. I wasn't going to get any models off. We were both very close to breaking. I think in the last turn, I was 3 away and Dan was 2 away.
Yeah.
And no leader points had been done at this point. So the Shadow Lord had spent his fate though in a previous round, so I was really worried, and I didn't have any might in the middle of the board to heroic move him away.
Yeah.
So he charged him with Aragorn he charged him with a Warrior of the Dead, but then had Aragorn in a fight with like 1 Morannon, and the King of the Dead in a fight with like 1 Morannon, and Leggy was also in a fight with 1 Morannon. He called 3 heroic combats, but I'd managed to tag Aragorn with 2 more models, which meant he didn't kill all 3, which was really lucky.
Yeah.
Leggy absolutely whiffed his combat, and the Morannon shielded, so I just pushed him back. And then the King of the Dead won his combat, and I thought, well, if he goes into the Shadow Lord, I'm dead here. The same fight, but he's got more attacks, and if he wins, he wounds me on a 5,
and it's very likely to kill you. Yeah,
I'll be dead. And as Dan moved him into an orc, and when you look up at someone, and then you look back down, and then you look up again, and I was just scratching my head thinking, well, why has he done that then? He basically won the game right there. He would have killed my leader and got the 2 points or 3 points, whatever it's worth. And then, as it transpired, Aragorn didn't get his heroic combat because he only killed 2. Or had he only killed 1? I can't remember, but it ended up being that I was 1 away from being broken, Dan was 1 away from being broken, and no leader points. So we drew 0-0, but I said to him after that, why didn't you just charge the king in? He went, yeah, I know, I should have done. I don't know what he was trying to do something clever where Aragorn could kill him. And I was like, no, you should have just killed him with the king. So it ended up being a 0-0, and in all fairness to Dan, he definitely probably deserved to win that game. Like, as I say, 1 away. He killed 5 Blackguard in 1 round of combat. I was really upset about that. Just like 60 points of orcs just gone. I was like, sucks. To be fair to Dan, like, he played it really well. He definitely should have won. I got very lucky with him failing. I think in 1 round he failed 5 courage tests with his Army of the Dead to charge my Black Numenorians.
Yeah.
But again, we played it in the right spirit. It was a really good game. I learned that perhaps I should have not taken the Blackguard because I knew it was good v evil, and maybe try and maxed out on, like, there's 60 points I could have spent on another hero with higher courage, maybe like a Zagdush or
just something else.
Yeah, I think they were good for the game against James because he didn't have anything. They were fight 4 and their strength 5. I was chopping riders up on 4s. Yeah. It was great, but against the Army of the Dead, they were still good because the fight 4 meant, the fights that they didn't die in straight away, I won. But then I just couldn't kill anything because defense 8, even with strength 5, is still really hard to kill. Yeah. So, but as I say, finished 0-0. Me and Dan had a good game. We were both very hot afterwards, but he should have definitely won. So, unlucky Dan, mate.
Yeah, it's another good game going down to the last couple of turns.
Literally, all my games apart from the last game where I got absolutely smashed, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Both of my first 2 games literally could have been won and lost in the very last turn. So that's why I don't really mind the results as they went because they were just really good games. Yeah. So Anyway, game 3, which was
Yes. Clash by Moonlight.
Clash by Moonlight. Yeah.
So for this one, I played Sam Palmer. I'd never played him before. I'd spoken to him about events on Facebook and stuff.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah, he runs a few. I think it's at the Bad Moon Cafe. I think he did one. And I couldn't go. I couldn't go.
He's also helping run the London GT, I believe.
Do you know what? I did see that, and I completely forgot to ask him about that because there's a chance I might be able to go, but it's a maybe, and because it wouldn't really cost me anything for travel because I normally only do 1-day events because of travel and costs and just easier to fit it in.
Yeah,
because it's in London, I would probably be able to get to it, but I need to make sure I can do both days. Yeah, but I forgot, so I will actually message him maybe today or tomorrow about that. But so I played Sam, and he had a Mordor army of the Witch King on Felbeast, fully kitted out with crown and Morgul blade and all sorts, and a Mouth of Sauron on horse or armored horse.
I think there was 3 Mouth of Saurons at that event.
Yeah, he's very. I think you were saying before how he's very good now. He's got 2 attacks, so he's not terrible on the charge in combat. He's a cheap caster. He's pretty good.
Yeah, I love him. I think he's great. But
and he had Kardish as well. I've never played against Kardish before, and he actually probably turned out to be the most valuable model in terms of how many points he got back and what he actually did.
Was it the fireball or was it the will for the...
Well, the fireball. He didn't give any will back to the Witch King, but he cast the fireball, I think. Sam was using usually 2 will a turn, I think. Or maybe it was 1. Every time he cast it, I'm pretty sure it went off. Right. And it killed Spearman every single time.
I mean, if you're paying 1 or even, Spearman's 10 points?
That's 11 with Spearman.
11. So if you're using 2, you're killing your points back at least, I guess.
Yeah, and then he was getting some more will back. So I think he may have killed about 4.
Nice. Just with fireball?
Yes, just with fireball.
That's mental.
And it was really good.
And he can lead 12.
Exactly.
Which is really good for a shaman.
50, 60 points, whatever he is.
He's 60 points, yeah.
Yeah, so... Yeah, really good. So anyway, Clash by Moonlight. I only had 7 shots. No, it was just enough that he had to come to me. Otherwise, we could position ourselves just inside 12, and I'd get a few shots each turn.
Yeah,
and with +1, it would eventually do some damage.
Oh, definitely.
So knowing he had to come to me, I found a gap between the board was a couple of houses, a couple of woodlands, and rocks again. So I positioned myself between. I think it was a house and some woodland.
Yeah.
And there was a little gap down the side. He had a few Warg Riders. So I put my Rivendell Knight in that space to kind of counteract any charge bonuses, things like that. So he had to come to me, and he did. But I thought by doing that, he had a lot more models than me, but he wouldn't be able to take my whole army at once.
Yeah.
So I had my battle line set up between there. I had Radagast on Slay just behind because there's a big gap on the left where I felt he may have decided to go that way or bring the Felbeast in that way, which he did. So I put Glorfindel over there as well. So the Felbeast started to come that way, and I used Radagast Panic Steed for the first time. I thought, let's try and get rid of a Felbeast. And even though it goes off on a 2, I think for the first 2 turns, I threw quite a lot of will at it. Maybe 1 and a 2 and the 3-1 twice.
Wow.
Trying to get a 6. And potentially force him to use might, not necessarily will, because he had loads of will.
Yeah.
But I thought if I can get a might off him, then if I get Glorfindel into combat, it might be in my favour.
Right.
Anyway, he resisted it, got a fair few 6s to resist. I think my casting rolls were quite bad as well. I think I might have got 1 6. But
so the 6 is back also means
and
that
he's getting wills back
the
as
will.
well.
Yeah,
and because he had the crown, you can re-roll. So he had a chance of getting will back on that as well. Nice. So that was a bit of a lesson learned. Don't always have to go for the 6. You can just use 1.
I think I would probably just use the 3-1 and just try and make him spend some will.
Because then a couple of turns later on, your staff is broken on Radagast, and I only had 2 left in the store, already having used my 3-1.
Right.
And I had to use the 2 in the store, because it was a case of if I use 1, there's a chance it'll be broken, then I'll have 1 left anyway. So I thought I'd just use the 2 and have the 3-1 each turn. Luckily, I resisted that. But so yeah, as these orcs were coming forward, there was a little bit of backwards and forwards in the middle.
Right.
I killed a few. He killed a few. Nothing unexpected. His warg riders come around the side. I think he had 2 or 3.
Okay.
I got the charge on them each turn with a Rivendell Knight and some foot troops. He killed my Rivendell Knight the first time I charged him.
Ouch.
Then when Warriors on foot, again, I won quite a lot of roll-offs in this game. Sam was quite unlucky with the roll-offs for priority.
Right.
So I managed to charge his wargs, I think, every single turn. But his wargs literally killed me every turn apart from 1.
Fair enough.
So eventually they lost the combat and did die. But I was charging them, and with their 1 attack, they were winning the combat, and with strength 4, were just taking my guys down.
Yeah.
And then where the Witch King on Felbeast was, I managed to get Glorfindel in on him.
Yeah.
And with his armour of Gondolin, he was a bit hesitant to waste will, if you like, on casting on him. He was trying to cast on others. And at this point, I had Glorfindel around that side with Gildor with an Immobilize and Radagast with Immobilize.
Yeah.
So I was throwing Immobilizes at him. And eventually I immobilized him. He couldn't strike up. Right. I went in 2-handed with the view of mighting back up to a 6 to win the fight.
Yep.
So I won the fight by but he had to use a will to a might to make me use a point of might, I think.
Okay.
Didn't kill him the first turn, but eventually, I think it was the second turn, Glorfindel got in on him. He was immobilized. No, we got a strike off, got a higher fight, and Glorfindel chopped him down without taking a single scratch. And yeah, from there, I tried to get Glorfindel around on his heroes. He brought them out for Sauron over because the VPs were for killing heroes and breaking and leader wounds, I think. Couldn't quite kill all his heroes. I think I may have killed the mouth in the last turn, potentially. Maybe I didn't. No, I don't think I did. And I couldn't get to Cardiff. She was too busy fireballing my guys in the face. At this point, I still think it was on for a draw because I was broken, but I had killed a hero.
Okay.
And leader or something. Yeah, because he would have got 5 for me broken, him not broken. I'd have got 3 for killing more heroes than him, and 2 for killing the leader. And then in the last turn, Radagast got a bit of a gap in the line because he was behind the elves still. Charged him, slay, killed 2 warriors, and I managed to break him by like 1 model, I think.
Oh, nice.
So I managed to win 8-4, I think. But it was heading for a draw because I just couldn't chop him down in the middle because I didn't have enough numbers, and he was starting to wear away. And
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Sam's used Mordor much before, but it sounds like he had some good little tactics there. I might have to. I've got Cardiff myself. I might have to paint him up. Yeah,
like I wasn't expecting Cardiff to be bad, but he killed literally every turn because it's a strength 5 or 4?
6 here,
yeah,
I believe.
Yeah, it was because it was killing on 4s. Yeah, so it's strength 6.
And if you channel it, they also are set on fire.
Yeah, so that would have been good for it. But then with Glorfindel, it wouldn't have been the best target because he's got his 2 to resist and 3 in the store as well. So, but he was just killing troops for fun, and because I only had 23 models, it made a big difference.
I can imagine.
He was really starting to overrun me, and just because Radagast got in at the end, so his Slay coming in use, probably won me the game because he was on Slay. If he was on a horse, he probably would have ran away.
Right.
So so the Slay strikes again.
Fair play.
And I managed to win that 8-4. But it's a really good game. I hadn't played Sam before. It was played in good spirits. When he had some bad rolling, and when I had some bad rolling, but he wasn't winning a lot of priorities, but he was just having a laugh with it. It was a very enjoyable game. The first time I played him, cool. It was good fun.
So I played Stuart Harder. I've not played him, not met him before, let alone played him before, but he's a really nice guy. And he had Durin with the King's Champion and a captain. And then a load of Iron Guard and Khazad Guard, and then some Dwarf Warriors with shield, and a couple of bows and some throwing axes from the The Iron Guard. There you go. Couldn't think of what it was. So the first couple of turns, we moved towards each other. The board was very much like I had one piece of terrain in the middle of my line. He had one piece of terrain in the middle of his line. And as we kind of marched towards each other, we could make a line again. And I thought, if I can kill Durin early with Shagrat, then I'd probably be fine.
Yeah.
So I charged the first turn that we got into combat. The Mouth of Sauron had done a cheeky transfix on Durin, and he let it go. So I charged Shagrat in, struck, went higher, won the fight, knocked him over, rolled my wound rolls, and didn't get any wounds. And I was like, okay, I know I need, because I think he's defense 9, so I did need 6s.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I just had,
even a 5 or something, just
something to nick it. But no, I was like, okay, well, he's on the floor. It's not the end of the world. I'll get him next turn. And I charged the Mouth into a Captain and an Iron Guard, thinking, it'd be all right. I lost the fight. They both wounded him. I passed my fate roll and then ran away because I was very hurty at that point. And then Guritz had charged an Iron Guard, and I thought, again, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Lost the fight. And he took a wound, and I was like, right, okay, so 2 of my heroes were now 1 wound, no fate. And Shagrat had spent a might point to strike up, and I was like, this is not good. So the next turn, I managed to move the Mouth into just a couple of warriors, and Guritz again into a couple of warriors, and I tied up his heroes with Black Numenorians, and Black Guard and stuff. So again, Shagrat, I'd spent a lot of point. I tried to immobilize him. I was transfixed him. Sorry, with the Shadow Lord failed. The Mouth of Sauron was too far away, so I couldn't. So I thought, okay, well, I'll strike up. So I struck up 1, did 2 wounds, and I was like, all right, good, decent. He's got 1 wound left. But he used all 3 fate and lived. No, he used 2 fate and lived.
Does he get the reroll for his fate?
Yeah, so he...
Yeah. He's got one of the rings,
had I done 3 wounds? No, I did 2 wounds naturally, and I got a 5, so I used second point and might. I didn't strike, I just went for it.
Yeah.
So I got 3 wounds, and he used all 3 fate, and I think he passed 2, failed 1, then used a reroll and passed that one.
Yeah.
Or he used the 6+, and I was like, all right, well, he's out of fate at least, and he was still on the floor. And the next turn, he won the heroic move off and managed to charge Shagrat. So I couldn't. So I tried to. So I channel transfixed him this turn. I spent my might point with the Shadow Lord.
Yeah.
Channel transfixed him, struck up, went higher because I didn't know. Did I strike?
If he channeled, he probably would have been halved fight value. So
he was. Maybe I didn't strike, but I had 1 might left. But I rolled like a 3 highest, and he rolled a 5, and I was like, okay, well, because at this point I'd invested 2 might from Shagrat, a might from the Shadow Lord, like 3.
And you want something to show for it.
And I was just like, if I could just kill Durin and get a point of might back for Shagrat, I'll be fine because I'll be able to, hopefully chop through some of his troops. Because I'm wounding them on 5s, but if I'm knocking them down, I should be killing them.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I was losing combats across the board, and because his front line was all strength 4, he was just mowing through me. And in the end, he didn't kill Shagrat, he didn't kill the Shadow Lord, but he did kill Guritz, and the Mouth of Sauron had lost his horse. And I was broken. All I'd managed, I think I killed maybe 6 or 7 dwarfs, and then Durin was
just hard to chop through dwarves, aren't they?
It was just hard to, because even when I was winning fights, I said to Stuart as we came into the last couple of turns, I said, had I wounded on half the fights that I'd won, I'd probably, we'd probably both be in a similar
situation.
If I just managed to kill some of his models, I could have mobbed up on a couple, and then I had them trapped, and I could have fainted, or, I could have
done something anyway.
Yeah,
something different.
just I couldn't get through the line. Basically, the dwarves just proper hard counter to even strength 4. My whole army was pretty much strength 4 or 5. It's just a proper hard counter. But again, at that point, I think we were table 9 or 10 or whatever, so it didn't really matter. And it was nice to play Stuart. I'd never played him before, and I made a few mistakes, and he let me off, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think most people did throughout the whole event, really, like letting people off little things, because everyone plays to win, but not at all costs.
Well, it was also just using models I hadn't used before. I forgot a few little rules, and he was just a really nice guy. So thank you, Stuart, for a nice game, even though you absolutely battered me. And I think I learned again from learning experiences from the list going forward. If it's good versus evil, I should drop the Blackguard. Because I can get Black Numenorians, they're 3 points cheaper. So dropping the 5 Blackguard, I'd say 15 points, which means I could get 3 trackers and just bump my numbers up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I still have Fight 4 and they cause terror. And if I really wanted to hoard out, I could swap some of the Morannon Spearmen for normal Orc Spearmen and save a few points there as well.
Yeah, just get a few more numbers.
But yeah, overall, it was a really good event. I had a lot of fun. I mean, all 3 of my games were very close. The last game I got battered, but had my wound rolls been slightly better, again, it could have been another close game. So
yeah,
3 good games.
A lot of people think games were like that as well. Like that seems to be like can't really remember, to be honest, with the old edition, but with the new one, games are usually coming down to the last couple of turns or last turn.
I think it's just because the scenarios are so balanced now, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're really like, it's not a case of turn 1, I've lost this.
No,
it's like
you've always got something to play for.
The last one. Yeah.
But yeah, so the event was really good. So thank you to you for putting on another good event. We were struggling for tables. Katie came in at lunchtime. Said, there's more tables in the garage? And I was like, I wish you'd told me that when we were setting up this morning.
We made it work, but
we did. But at least we know for next time there are more tables in the garage.
Yeah. So I think at the moment, I think the numbers for our events around 22 is about right because of the amount of boards we have, because we're still relying on people to bring stuff.
That's true. Yeah.
So like I say, for the finale, 24 hopefully, because we'll hopefully be able to get. Well, we will be able to get another mat and some scenery by then. So that takes us up to the extra board that we need.
Yeah, we've definitely got enough tables because there's more in the garage. But no, it's a really good event. I learnt a lot about some of the new units. Black Numenorians were really fun to use because it allowed me to sometimes pick my fights a bit better, because people failed. I could then charge in where I wanted them.
Yeah.
And the Fight 4 against good armies was invaluable. Like, I was tying most fights with the dwarfs. I beat the army of the dead with the fight value, and the Rohan if I charged them rather than them charging me.
Yep.
So they are very good, and I think they're probably going to be in some of my lists later on in the year going forward. So
yeah, sounds good. Yes, my list is like similar to you. Learned a lot with it. Never used Radagast. On Slay, and really enjoyed it. There's a lot of different things you can use. You've got Nature's Wrath, you've got Aura of Dismay, even Renew. So if you can't do anything offensive wise, it's almost like in a sense, defensive spell. I brought Gildor because I wanted March because of the scenarios we had. But the list, and CJ said actually when I was playing CJ, if I had Kieran, it would have been even better. So
what's the difference in points between?
Just 10.
So you lost one bowman or something, or one spearman.
Yeah, but it was like I say, it was just what I had painted and threw together. I usually bring Gilgalad, but you can't because of the alliance restrictions he gives you. It can only be with Numenor, otherwise everything's impossible. So that's why I went with Glorfindel, but
it sounds like he did right for you anyway.
Oh yeah, he definitely did. And then with a Immobilize from Radagast, you can go two-handed.
Yeah.
Essentially, when you're saving your might for strikes, you can might your two-handed back up to a 6. And then I really enjoyed it. I'm going to definitely use Radagast and Slay some more. And very fun model to use. Thanks for letting me borrow it. And
no problem
to everyone who came and made it a very easy event to run. everyone just gets on with it and helps out packing away and setting up rather.
Yeah, they did actually.
That's it's really appreciated. And so we'll run through the results. So I'll put up the results table today because I didn't have a chance before. I've actually just looked at the picture and it's very, very blurry. So I can just about make it out. Well, it was only 3 games. So initially I was a bit not worried, but I thought maybe the top 2 would have a couple of people who had won 3 games and then you're split in by VPs. And it's always nice to have the overall winners to have won all of their games. But it worked out that the first place for good and evil both won all 3 of their games and no one else did. So it worked out nice that way.
Yeah.
So for good, it was Kieran Hatton. He won.
Well done, Kieran, mate.
Yeah, he's come on this year. I think you were saying before, he went to a few events last year, but he's come to a lot more this year.
Yeah.
And I think he was playing Return of the King Legion.
Yeah, I think he had Aragorn and the King, and then he hoarded out with the Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
I mean, in the good versus evil, they're so good.
Yeah, definitely. There was I think there was 3 Army of the Dead.
Yeah, Dan, Kieran, and Tom.
Yeah. And so first for evil was CJ, winning all 3 of his games.
With his Mordor Harad alliance.
Yeah, it was a very good list. They worked well together. And for the scenarios, they were good. And CJ's just a good player anyway.
Yeah. No, fair play.
And then I managed to come in second with my list somehow.
Don't think you give yourself enough credit, mate.
Nah, but it was it was a really enjoyable list, and it just worked out really well. It was never going to be a terrible list, but I didn't think it would. It's only 3 games, and it's certain scenarios, so it's hard.
I did think, considering that we had recon and hold ground, your numbers might have been an issue. But
definitely, that was my thinking. It was I wasn't expecting to get favourable scenarios, but the matchups were quite good.
Yeah,
and like in what I had and stuff, and no, they're all good games. But I defaulted my second place prize because if I'm buying the prizes and then winning the prizes, I just like so I just passed it on to third place, which was Reese, who also won 2 of his games. Yeah. And so he had the second highest VP difference of the 2-player wins. The players with 2 wins, rather.
Fair enough.
Second place, Evil, was Costas with his Mordor.
Yeah, his return to the league.
And I think he got second place. They had the same VP difference. He got that on VPs scored.
Oh, wow.
The tiebreaker after that. That's how close it was.
Very close then.
And so the prizes were first place good was the Deal Wine, and second place good was Durnhelm. First place evil was the Dark Lord himself, Sauron.
Yep.
And second place was the new Raza and Delgamir models from Forge World.
I think Costas and CJ actually swapped, but
did they?
Yeah, because Costas doesn't collect either of those armies.
Fair enough. Yeah, because
CJ already had 3 Saurons.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So because what I've been doing when it's the top 3 is a pick when you're first, second, and third. But because it was just the first 2, my thinking was if they want to swap, it's just 2 people to swap, so they can just swap anyway. Yeah, which has obviously happened, which works out well for everyone.
Yeah.
Taking home the wooden spoon was Vince. It was his first event with us, and it was the first time he'd used the army.
Tom said he's a very new player, so.
Yeah. But he seemed like he had a good time. I was speaking to him a little bit, and hopefully we'll see him at some more events soon.
Yeah, he seemed like a nice lad.
Most sporting with 3 votes from his 3 games was Clayton. And he won himself a £10 Games Workshop voucher, which I will send to him today. So if you listen to this, probably by the time this goes up, you should still have it. You should have it by then.
Yeah.
And that was it for that one. It was a really enjoyable event. Something a little bit different because we haven't done many good versus evils this year. And I'll get the league results. I might not have the time till later in the week or early next week, but I'll get them up.
Yeah.
And see where everyone is on that. But should we run through the next couple of events or questions? We'll do the next couple of events first.
I think we've done it all before, recently. Yeah. But Sean's Battle of the 5 Army books is in 2 weeks now.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure. I need to find what Aaron Wilson's event's called, but I can't for the life of me remember.
But it's the same events as we've said last time. So if you go on the East Anglia Hobbit community group, go on our events tab, everything's on there. The only new event is the next league event in September, which people have started reserving spaces for.
You can talk about that, I suppose.
Yeah, it's going to be a 450 point event because we were going to do a smaller 4-game event and we haven't done 450 points yet. So that's the thinking behind that. You have the option to take 1 good and 1 evil army if you want to make all your games good versus evil. If you want to just take 1 army, you can if you want. But it's just if for people who always want good versus evil, if you take 2 armies, you'll always get that. And I'll flesh out the details of that in the coming weeks or month or so.
I found Aaron's event. It's on the 20th of July. It's called Stand Men of the Southeast. I think it's a Aragorn quote, but changed slightly. Yeah. And he has, according to the player list, he's got 2 spaces left.
Yeah.
So
there's a couple of spaces if anyone wants to grab those.
And that's.
And then we've gone through the ones before, so we can just go through them as they come up. But the next one will be Sean's event. Next 2 weeks, so not this Saturday after.
I think it's the 14th or 13th. Yeah,
13th. So I'm going to that. Are you going to that?
I am. I'm on Mordor team.
I'm on Fallen Realms, so I'll be bringing my Isengard. I haven't played with them yet. Nice. So we'll do probably the next episode will probably be a review of that maybe in a couple of weeks' time, and or maybe something before if something comes up.
I think Dan suggested that we have podcast topics, and then if we ask for questions, obviously when we're reviewing an event, the questions aren't really, unless you've been to the event, you're probably not going to have event-based questions. So we'll do it in the format of we'll answer what you ask, as it were. But if we have a podcast where it's about a specific topic, then we'll ask for topic-related questions and see what you guys come up with to help us flesh out the episodes a little bit. Yeah,
so leading on from that, we could run through the questions we've got for this one.
Well, it's going to be a long one, mate. We're already at an hour.
Should we run through them or save it for next time?
Well, if we
could do it as a separate episode.
We could do, but then that might not be long enough.
If we get, I think Dan was talking about coming on, we can get Dan to come on and maybe do 3 people with the questions. If we leave it for a little bit more, get a few more questions.
So again, it's entirely up to you. I mean, I'm happy to answer them now, but
we'll go through them now. We'll do maybe another topic one next week.
We'll be quick. Some of them are repeats. It won't take that long.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Okay, so first question. I think we answered this last time. What would you like to see come back on sale permanently, and what would you like to see come back as made to order? For me, permanently, the Erebor heroes, because I want to do that as an army for next year, but currently you can't buy any of them. And the captains for that army. So the Erebor captain's a really nice model, and Thorin, Thrain, Thror. They're for me either as made to order or as a permanent comeback.
Oh, I thought you meant the Champions of Erebor for a second.
No, I meant for the actual...
Yeah, the old style Erebor.
Old style Erebor list. Yeah. I'm imagining that they might have been taken away to get repackaged to come back out to save space.
Yeah, makes sense.
And yourself?
So, anything come back on sale is anything that doesn't have a profile and a model for the profile yet. Like things that have been taken away, like you say, the Erebor heroes and things like that. And also, I'm not worried about having all the war gear options available as a model, but if a model's got a mounted option, it'd be nice to have the ones that were available mounted back again.
Okay,
so things like mounted Erebor, but again, that's just because I want that. But that's things like that. Like when you've got different, for armors and a bow, you can add them on yourself if you really want to.
Yeah.
So
it'd be nice to see a weapon pack for races, because they did it for the Gundabats. It'd be nice to see them do that for
just the generic one for
elves
each race,
and
if you like.
Men. If you have, for instance, you take the bowman, you could have a spear or if you take Spearman, you could put a
Mm.
bow on the back or something like that.
Something along those lines, yeah.
James,
And made to
Rich-
order, I'd
sorry.
say just any alternate ones like that, ones with a bow that don't have a bow. I
Oh,
think
okay, that'd be
that's
cool.
better for made for order, right? In
Yeah,
my
that'd definitely be
opinion,
cool.
anyway.
James has asked highlights from the league event. I think we've discussed that. Things you've learnt about your armies. Again, I think I've gone through that, and so have you. And list your favourite people who attended. Everyone, because if no one attends, we wouldn't have events, and the hobby would die. So I love you all equally. Thank you all for coming to the event.
For mine, I think for the highlight, because I probably didn't do it justice doing the talking about the game. For somehow to have a very, very enjoyable loss against CJ, I think it's quite a highlight to have a loss that I'd probably enjoy as much as a win. It was a great game. I don't think my review done it justice, but no, it was good. And we've done the army, and I agree with Josh. Everyone who attended, all favourites. But I feel like James was fishing for you're my favourite there.
He knows that we love him anyway, so
yeah.
Put your fishing rod away, mate. Mr. Wilson has asked for favourite model. We did do this last week. I asked for good and evil. He said sure. Mine are still probably Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, with his lance and a shield. And currently, for evil, it's the Mouth of Sauron, just because I think he's great.
Mine's changed. For good, it's now Radagast on Slay.
Oh, there you go. Fair enough.
Gil-galad is still up there, but at the moment, I really enjoyed that, so I'm going to use that as much as I can.
Yeah, fair enough.
For evil, I can't remember what I said last time. But
I think you might have said Lurtz or Saruman.
Yeah, that's probably still the same because that's the only evil army I've got at the moment. So I'll still go with that. Yeah.
CJ has asked, contrast paints, no particular question. I just think they're great and would like to hear your thoughts. I haven't actually had a chance to use them yet. The colours I need currently aren't in stock for the painting project I'm currently working on, which is still kind of a secret. What I'll do is once I've painted up some of those models with the contrast paints, I'll do a little hobby vlog and I'll answer your question then, CJ, if that's all right.
Yeah, I'd be really interested in looking at that because I know a few people have done reviews on them. I haven't got around to looking at the reviews. But if they work as they're intended, which I'm sure they do, I may pick some up because I usually just base colour and wash. So
just save you a save you a highlight step. Yeah, you don't even have to wash; they'd be done already.
Exactly.
Clayton has asked. This is his first time answering a question, so thank you, Clayton, for asking a question. Is it easier to put together a 500 point or a 700 point army? He's got a 3-part question, so we'll cover that one. 500 points for me. Well, to answer the question, it entirely depends on the scenarios. If they're random, that adds different headaches. If they're fixed, then I can pick certain heroes for certain things that I want them to do in my army. It doesn't really matter because there's higher expensive heroes and then mid-pointed heroes that kind of do the same job for Mordor. And that's kind of what I'm playing this year.
Yeah, for me, it's always 700 or the higher points I prefer because I usually like taking 1 or 2 big things. And if I'm at smaller points, then I end up with 3 models with them, 3 troops. Whereas if it's 700, I can still take what I want. Because otherwise, I take the big thing and then start chopping it down to fit into a smaller list. So I prefer like a 700-ish is what I prefer.
My easier list is 500 because my Blackgate list is 500 points, bang on. So
fair enough.
His second part of the question: most underrated, most overrated siege weapon. I've not had much experience with the siege weapons. I know that the Gondor Trebuchet is underrated. In my opinion, I think it's probably underrated. I think it's actually quite good. The same as the Avenger Bolt Thrower. I think that's very good.
I have used the Iron Hills Ballista a few times, but that is everyone knows that's pretty good.
Well, I mean that's not underrated or overrated. It is just good.
It's been FAQ'd that it's got a minimum range now of 12 inches because it never used to have a minimum range.
That's true.
So that's probably brought it back a little bit. So you've got an option of trying to close it down by getting close enough. But
that's true.
But yeah, like you say, I haven't really played against too many siege weapons. When the rules first come out, people were like, "Oh, we can use siege weapons; are going to be really good." But I haven't really played against many.
Definitely considering getting a Gondor list with my Avenger Bolt Thrower in there at some point this year.
Yeah, well, it's been mentioned. CJ mentioned as well, and a few others about having a larger points event. But then it would struggle to get too many games in. But we could maybe just do it as a casual day and have a couple of 1,000 point events, or maybe even do it as a 2-game league event potentially. But we'll see how that goes and get a few siege weapons up.
So some people did comment on that. Are siege weapons overrated? Dan put, are siege weapons overrated? I think they have a role
Higher points
for certain scenarios and points levels. They're very good, but it's just difficult to get them in. CJ's then put 500 points is so awkward. For a lot of factions, I definitely prefer 650 plus, where you can play with some big toys. I think we all do. I prefer, if I was to pick of the two, I have a perfect list for 500. It doesn't really scale up so well, so I'd have to play something else. So to answer his question, for me, it'd be 500. But I do agree that having the option to take, I'm building my Witch King at the moment on a Felbeast, so having an option where I could chuck in a 225 point Felbeast and still have 40 orcs is definitely better. And his third part of the question is favourite scenario. For me, that hasn't changed. It's still Hold Ground. I love it because it's random, and other people tend to be like, oh, I don't want to play it. And I can't remember what you said.
Well, if I had to choose now, it's probably different from what I said before. I'd probably say to the death when no one has got a massively overly shooty army. So then you just literally need to kill everything.
Yeah, that's fair. Kieran has asked, how do you combat the Return of the King Legion?
Warhorn.
So I was thinking about this, having played it at the weekend. If you can have something, elves are still the best combat in my opinion, because even though elves are expensive, for every 2 Warriors of the Dead, you're getting nearly 3 elves. So you should be able to double team and go 2-handed with one of them. Elves.
I don't think I've played a Return of the King Legion.
If you're not playing elves, Black Numenorians, but get a Warhorn in there. So if you've got more models in a model list, your Courage 4 base up to Courage 5, Warhorn Courage 6. But then it doesn't actually matter because you're still getting wounded on 5s, but it does mean it's 5s rather than 3s if it's orcs. So anything where you've got naturally high courage. And because if you try and take monsters, you're probably not going to get in. Maybe dragon. Just breathe fire on them. That'll work. But generally, higher courage, higher fight value. You want to be at least courage 4 after modifiers so that they're wounding you on 5s rather than 3s or 4s.
Like you say, elves are almost made to not made to combat them, but they've got everything you'd want to combat them.
In my opinion,
the high courage.
In my opinion, it's the elves because the heroes will be able to charge them and probably kill because of lances or, you've knocked them down because you're on a horse, stuff like that. That's elves is my answer. Favorite SB. Sam Huddy has asked favorite SBG colloquialism. I don't know if I've probably butchered the pronunciation of that, but his example are a snappy stick for your staff is broken, Blender Man for a Thranduil with his extra sword, Heroic Nope for the war leader rule, and then CJ's got Goodest Boys for wargs, Flappy Bastards for bats and fell beasts, and Choppies for the Abrachan Guard. Mine's always been Flappies for fell beasts or eagles.
I can't think of any more than that, to be honest.
Bozza, I guess, for Boromir is a colloquialism.
I'm not sure of any others, to be honest.
Mine's Flappies, anyway. Dan has asked, what models deserve better profiles and more in-game use? It's across the whole range. He's put can do good and evil. It's more quality of sculpt versus shirtness of profile. And he's got a second part to the question. For me, my answer, can only really think of one currently because I don't play many evil armies and actually like all the Mordor profiles at the moment. But I think that Faramir, which is an example that someone else has given, but it was the one that I immediately thought of. He's superseded now by Hurin, who's better than him. Boromir, who's better than him. Aragorn, who's better than him. Arguably Gandalf, the White, now with 2 attacks, is also a better option. Depending on the points, obviously, but for me, it's probably Faramir. James Richardson has suggested Aemir because the profile's really good, but his model was not great.
That's Knight of the Pelennor made to order. It's written all over it.
Yeah, so there you go. Knight of the Pelennor is my made to order option. But Faramir, in terms of what Dan originally asked, and then his second question, also, how important is it to play test your army before a tournament?
Massively.
Considering we both took armies that we hadn't tested before, Dan, I would agree that we both agreed that we should probably have maybe run a few practice games.
Yeah.
I think for working out the kinks, if you're taking an event seriously, he's put before a tournament, so assuming it's a competitive tournament, you should definitely play test your army before, because it gives you a chance to learn your little army tricks. Like Dan forgot his Aragorn banner nearly every turn. I had to remind him.
And weaknesses as well is a
yeah,
massive
exactly.
one. You want to play a vary, because we play similar. Most people probably play similar people all the time, and you've only got a certain number of models between you. You can only play the same list so many times before you know how it works against a certain army. So a variety is probably key as well.
It's very important, and mixing up who the armies you play and the opponents you play is probably also equally as important.
And one thing I've seen on a lot of videos on YouTube and stuff about tips and things that you just end up watching one video and then the next is, I've never actually done it, but swapping armies with someone. And like it says, because they might play it a different way that you've never thought of, or you might find a weakness on how to beat it that you haven't thought of.
That's actually a really interesting idea.
So you play a game or a couple of games, you playing with your army against theirs, and then switch it around and play it that way. I've never actually done it, but I've seen it on a few different videos as a tip video and things like that.
Yeah,
that could be interesting to do.
Definitely a good idea. Sam Huddy has asked, in a fight, how severely would Gandalf beat the absolute, I imagine it's
an expletive,
out of Dumbledore?
Your staff is broken. The wand is gone.
He hasn't got a staff. He's got a wand. So
I reckon this that would need an FAQ. Otherwise, I'd allow it. And then he could just do whatever he wants.
Well, Dumbledore has the ability to cast magic without a wand, for one, if you're a bit of a Harry Potter nerd like I am.
So does Gandalf.
So Gandalf dies to a big fall. Dumbledore doesn't. I don't know. They're completely different lore, and their spellcasting are on a completely different level to each other. But
my money would be on Gandalf.
Gandalf is a god, so probably Gandalf, right? I think it'd be closer than people think, though. So the last question is Mr. Tom Hawker again. He's asked a list question. When you're designing your first draft list, how do you go about it? Do you first pick the heroes you want to use and then divide the remaining points up into their warbands? Do you pick a hero and fill his warband before moving on to the next hero? Or is there some other black magic you use to write a successful list? He then asked for a special mention for all his opponents from Saturday. He learnt something new in each game and had a good time, so thank you. So when
mine's definitely heroes first, because I always use the big heroes, usually what my list is based around. So I always do it that way.
Okay, so what you pick your 3 or 2 or depending on the points level, you pick your heroes and then you fill out your warbands as best you can.
Okay. So this event, I wanted to use Radagast on Slay, so I knew he was going to be in there.
Yep.
And then, what models have I got? Right, I've got a few Rivendell that can ally. Right, what big hero can I use from that? Right, Glorfindel. Mm-hmm. Then what hero do I want next? Gildor for the March, which didn't even use in the end. And then see what I can cram in troop-wise and try and move some bits about after that. Okay. That's what I normally do. But that's not necessarily good or bad. That's just how I do it.
So for me, I tend to look at the scenarios. So for this event, I knew we'd have scenarios that had Maelstrom and reinforcements. So I took a hero to help me with that, which was Guritz. I then looked at the points level and decided that I needed a big choppy hero. So I took Shagrat. I then wanted to take something to support Shagrat, so I took the Shadow Lord for magic and for the stopping the enemy shooting at me. And then what was my fourth hero? Shagrat, the Mouth. The Mouth was just because I like him and I had that many points left. And so for me, it's more of a I'll pick the heroes that I need for the scenarios and then fill their warband. So similar, but not necessarily because I want to use a specific hero. I'm looking at the Witch King for a larger points event just because he's a hero of legend and I can get a nice big warband with him, which means I don't have to necessarily take the Mouth to fill up the points because I've spent the Mouth's points on troops, essentially. So for me, it's more look at the scenarios, decide what I need for those scenarios, then pick the heroes that best fit my needs. And then for Jack, it's pick what he likes and then fill out the warbands afterwards.
Pretty much. Yeah.
But I don't think there's any right or wrong way to list building. Theorizing lists is something that I enjoy doing. But again, I don't think if there's models you like and you're not really bothered about necessarily winning, just play what you like to play. If you want to write a more competitive list, then I guess give it a bit more thought. Play test your army, learn your army thoroughly. Play it for a long time and learn what works for you for the certain scenarios. And the problem is to build if you're playing a random event and it's from the 12. I think it's very difficult to build a list that wins all 12 scenarios.
Yeah, or if it picks 3 or 4 random ones from all 12, it's hard to predict what comes out. You could have a Horde army, and it could be Lords of Battle, Contest of Champions. You could have a elite army. It could be Domination and Recon.
So I think it's just a case of try and get a good balance, and essentially pick what you'd like to use. So that's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And that is that. So we smashed them out in 20 minutes in the end, mate.
Yeah,
so that's not too bad.
Not too bad. So thanks everyone if you've stuck through to the whole of this one. I think this is the longest one we've done so far, maybe.
Me and CJ did a bit longer, but yeah.
I listened to it so intently, I didn't even realise it was
like an hour and 48 minutes or something. So.
Good.
But that's after he edited it down because it was originally 2 hours and 10 minutes.
See. This one will not have any editing.
No,
so
straight
whatever
on.
This finishes as is what it's going to go on as.
That's fair enough.
But yeah, thanks anyone if you've listened through to the end. Hopefully you've enjoyed it and found it interesting. Yep. It's the first time I've really run through a review of a game, so I may have rambled on in bits.
I didn't talk enough, but I've got a memory like a sieve. So.
But thanks to all my opponents. Had a good game. Thanks for everyone at the event. Had a really good time. Mm-hmm. We've got more events coming up. So if anyone is interested, look us up on Facebook. If you're not already in the group, and if you want to come to one of the events, just put down on there you're coming, and we'll give you a space and you can come.
Yep. I would like to echo Jack's thanks for my opponents as well. I had 3 really fun games. I will do the YouTube bit again because it seemed to help last time. We got a lot more views more quickly. I don't know if that's because there was a bit more anticipation or what, but if you have listened to it to the end and you want to hear us carry on doing this as often as we can, please like the video on YouTube. Also leave us a little comment because how the YouTube algorithm works, the more interactions you have on your video means it gets recommended to more people. So yeah, please like it, leave a comment, share it if you can, and subscribe.
Yeah,
that's the last one.
And we'll hopefully next week we may do a random topic, but if not, we'll definitely do a review of Sean's event.
Having said that, if you want to leave us a topic in the comments that we can then discuss, if we do manage to get one in next week and not the week after Sean's event, then leave your topics in the comment section and we'll pick one and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.